Hi everyone, so welcome to the Daily Decode. Today we are having a live session because there was a technical issue in the afternoon session, so we are doing a live session today, and I hope that if you've got any questions, you can always put in the live session and I would be answering it. So today when I'm taking this session, yesterday in the session I had spoken that I have a belief, and rather most of the geopolitical enthusiasts or people who read into diplomatic affairs and geopolitical strategies, they were saying that there is a very high expectation that Xi Jinping and Modi will meet during the BRICS summit. Today is the second day of the BRICS summit, and when I'm taking this session, the meeting has happened between both of them. Obviously, what is the outcome of the meeting would be covered in tomorrow's DNA, because, or rather tomorrow's Daily Decodes, in which we would be going in deep what actually happened between India and China. But the best part is that the meeting did happen, and apart from the disengagement and agreement which has been done to go back pre-2020 or pre-Galwan levels. So coming to today's news, there are a lot of news today. First is India ready to provide all possible assistance for peace in Ukraine. Now there has been a message from Prime Minister that this is not an era of war, and he has been continuously talking about this and continuously giving this statement to President Putin, and he says that we should focus on economy, not on war, and he has said that whatever is the requirement so that a peace happens between Russia and Ukraine, the Prime Minister Modi is ready to do it and India is ready to do it. Next is China confirms agreement to end standoff in eastern Ladakh. Now yesterday there were a lot of skeptics, which you can see on YouTube, television and here and there, who were saying that the statement came from External Affairs Minister, statement came from the Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, but there was no official statement which came from the China, and they were questioning that the legitimacy of the statement from the External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar and the Foreign Secretary. But eventually what we saw today, the statement has come. China has also given a statement. The Foreign Secretary spokesperson Liam has given the statement related to China's confirmation on agreement. So obviously when our top leaders and a person in the power are giving the statements, they have spoken to the China. The statement do not come like this. Okay. So moving further, Army Chief remarks on India-China agreement. This is about building retrust. IMF maintains India's growth projection at 7%. This is in the global turmoil or the global economic issues which are going on, and world economic growth rate around 3.2%. Next is Indian Navy has set up 2 special task forces. This is apart from the TDEC which Indian Navy already has. The next news is India's 4th nuclear submarine launched into water. So apart from Arihant, then you've got Arighat and Ardhiman. This is the new nuclear submarine which is right now called S4 asterisk. The new name would be given over a period of time. The next is India-Singapore 6th Defence Ministerial Dialogue, which is happening in New Delhi. From Singapore, Dr. NG is participating, Dr. Neg is participating, or Dr. Neg Hen is participating, and from India's side, it's being represented by Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. So again, a very important news, Graded Response Action Plan, which is also called GRAP. So the second stage of GRAP has been applied in Delhi NCR. A question regarding GRAP has come previously, so we'll be dealing with that. Then an editorial about West versus the rest on Western conduct and India. This exposes the hypocrisy of West when it deals with in India, and specifically when they see terrorism or separatist movement and how we see them, what they say about free speech and hate speech. We'll talk about that. Finally, question and answers. Then in Tidbits we would be covering the factual parts or those information which is relevant for the exam. Now today onwards we are also changing the pattern. Earlier we used to take the questions by the end of the session, but from today onwards a news and a prelims and main question would be given there only for your convenience, and depending upon what kind of news it is, we will give you a prelims or a mains question. Rest the entire PDF link or the entire PDF, the link of this PDF would be given in description, which you can use later on. So moving further towards the class. Okay, so let's move towards the first news. Modi meets Putin, offers all help to end conflict. Again, so the Prime Minister is talking about that we need to end the conflict. This is an era, this is not an era of war, this is an era of economic growth of various countries in the world. So before I go deeper into it, first let us know BRICS. This I've already covered in the 19th October news also. What is BRICS? BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. This is the acronym which is used, BRICS. And the last summit, the 15th summit happened in South Africa. The 16th summit is happening in Kazan, Russia. So this is a little bit of information about BRICS. And formation of BRICS, if I talk about, earlier it was only BRIC, B-R-I-C, that was Brazil, Russia, India and China. So there was an informal kind of a meeting which happened during the G8 summit which happened in St. Petersburg, Russia, and then it was called BRIC, and it was an informal meeting. Now this happened in 2006, again in 2006, first BRIC foreign ministers meeting happens in New York, and then finally first BRIC summit happens in Yekaterinburg, Russia. So this location is very important now, Yekaterinburg, and also the current 16th summit which is happening, that is called Kazan. So all these two particular places, Yekaterinburg and Kazan, 2 new consulates would also be opened by India. That is one of the outcome of the BRIC summit which is going on. So in 2000 inaugural BRIC summit, following year 2010, then South Africa joins, and then from 2010 it becomes BRIC to BRICS. So that is how in 2000 it gets the name of BRICS. So I hope you have understood the important pointers out here. Now moving towards the next slide. So this is the location of Yekaterinburg. And this is Kazan. At this place, the first BRIC, now known as BRICS, summit happened. Here the 16th BRICS summit is happening. It's near to the Volga river, Kazan. Now, so these are the map locations which you need to know. Now, if we see, new members have been added. So the 5 new members which have been added to BRICS are UAE, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Egypt. So Ethiopia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran, UAE, these are the new members, taking the total number of BRICS to 10 members now. So, and this is the first time that after the addition of the new members, the summit that they are participating as full-time members to BRICS. So this is also one of the important development which is happening. And when it comes to numbers, if we see the numbers of BRICS, certain important numbers for you: 45% of global population is represented by BRICS, 37% of global economy is represented by BRICS, 20% of world exports is represented under the BRICS or represented by BRICS, 44% of crude oil production is represented by BRICS. Now when BRICS was happening, at that time everybody told that this is a focus towards global south, and indeed it is a focus towards the global south. And as we saw that the major organization were either dominated by the Americans, West, or the Western world, that is why BRIC came as an alternative system to this global dominance done by the Western, American, or the European system, and that is how BRICS come. And today if we see all these numbers, BRICS over a period of time has been growing. And if we see today's conflict which are happening, the Russia-Ukraine conflict is happening, the Middle East conflict about Israel, Iran, Israel, Hamas, Israel, Hezbollah, Israel, Houthi, Israel, Lebanon, all these conflicts are going. In this context, BRICS has grown. Many world leaders from Turkey, Venezuela, China, India, obviously we are the permanent members, we will participate. But apart from that, Turkey leader, Venezuelan leader, the representation from Bangladesh, Vietnam, a lot of humongous amount of representation has happened in this BRICS. It tells about the importance of global south. It also gives one important message, as the Americans and Europeans are trying to make Russia aloof or segregated or ostracize Russia. But even today this summit has told us, specifically which is headed by Russia, that they have huge amount of friends here, they have huge amount of partners who are standing with Russia. I'm not saying that they are supporting what is Russia doing in Ukraine, but even today Russia has very important partners, and people are and countries are looking towards alternative organization. And here the BRICS becomes very important, because if we see G7, G8, although there is not a great value relevant to G7, it used to be G8, but they had removed Russia and now it has become G7. And it also tells us that India is now the only country which is part of these major groups, which is talking to everyone. This also tells about India's independent foreign policy, independent de-hyphenation policies. So this is a wonderful thing which India has also achieved. If you see the last 3-4 months, India has been, so there was a meet of India had gone to, there's a formal summit in which the Prime Minister met, Modi met Vladimir Putin, then he met Zelensky, then he met Joe Biden for a personal dinner. Now he is back here, and again an intergovernmental conference will again happen. So it's a very deft and heavy diplomacy which is being done by India, and wonderful steps are being taken. So moving further, so India is ready to provide all possible assistance for peace in Ukraine, 16 BRICS summit, Kazan. So most of these things I have covered, and this summit also becomes very important. It is happening in terms when Russia-Ukraine war is going, and obviously Russia needs one kind of support, and the Israel or the Middle East or the West crisis is also going on. So in this term, the Prime Minister talking about peaceful resolution, be it the Israel-Hamas war or Israel-Palestine or Russia-Ukraine. And Russia also gives a huge amount of importance to India in this context. Over a period of time, Russia has again and again told that China and India would be the major countries through which these peace resolution can come out of the Russia-Ukraine war. So, and the Prime Minister is again saying this was the same message which Prime Minister gave to Vladimir Putin when he met him in July. Then he meets Zelensky there. There also was a huge cry that, that he has hugged, Vladimir Putin. Zelensky and the West did not like it, but that was the same thing the Prime Minister repeated when he met Zelensky. That is his style, and that also talks about our independent foreign policy. Okay, so moving further, India's start on Ukraine conflict has been very clear from day one. Possible assistance to resolve the crisis, all possible outcome. And it also tells us one more thing, that yes, we want to resolve the crisis, but when it comes to our need of oil and gas, we would be taking oil and gas from Russia. This is independent foreign policies. This is, your strategic autonomy. So there was a statement given by Dr. S. Jaishankar when he was asked a question, and he had said that the amount of oil or gas which we are getting from Russia, this is the same amount of oil and gas which Europe buys in a single day from Russia. So again, so hypocrisy has always been there when it comes to the Europeans and Americans, and but in this context, India is trying to maintain its independent strategic autonomy also, and also talking about, yes, we have needs, but at the same time the crisis should be resolved. So he stated dispute should be settled through peaceful means and humanitarian efforts. Apart from that, Indian Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri has also taken the issue in which around 20 cases he is talking about, in which Indian national who ended up fighting for Russia and Ukraine through fraudulent foreign employment agents, and they were fighting in the Russia-Ukraine war. So 20 such cases are going on for so that these people can be returned back, the repatriation happens. So India-Russia bilateral relation, obviously India-Russia bilateral relation. So there are certain things, the defense ties which used to be, so I'll give you a number regarding this, you will have a better idea. So if you see, Russian share in Indian arms from 2009 to 2013 was 76%, and 2019 to 2023 it's only 36%, because now we are buying majority of weapons from, we are buying weapons from Canada, we are buying weapons from America, Israel and many other countries. So the weapon share, which used to be the major dominant lucrative part of India-Russia relationship, because when it comes to political chemistry understanding between India and Russia, we very well understand each other. But for any relationship to continue, it cannot continue on nostalgia, right? It cannot come into what we did in the past. You need to put hard fact, numbers and data so that the relationship continues. So this arms have come down, but the good part is that we are importing a huge amount of oil and gas from Russia. But this is happening because Russia is not able to sell it to Europe because of the current sanction in the Russian-Ukraine war. But once this war ends, then what should be the thing which should go in Russia India-Russia relationship. So we need to chart out the system or some numbers or some areas. Obviously the foreign relations from both the sides are working upon it. Certain things will finally, eventually will come, probably if we are moving out of the oil and gas. Now these are two numbers. When it comes to China-Russia trade, it's around $240 billion. When it comes to India-Russia trade, it is around $65 billion. And this would be even much more less if you exclude the oil part from it. So these are certain photographs which were also covered, which I've taken and were covered in the first post show. You can also check that. There are wonderful insights have also been given there. Apart from that, on 25th session of India-Russia Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Technical and Cultural Cooperation will take place November in New Delhi. So that's what I'm saying. So diplomacy is, it's a continuous game. It's a heavy game. It is continuous. 4 years, when the 2020 incident happened, we would have never thought, in 2024 we would be able to find some kind of resolution or solution between India and China. If you move even further, and if you see the issue of Maldives. So Maldives, when Mohammed Mursi came, he came on, India out campaign, but today he is all about India in, please help me in. He was in New Delhi and he was in all the, the corridors of Indian power circles to help him out, and India did help. The line of credit was given to him so that Maldives, so initially it was all about China and everything, but today he understands the importance of India. So when Mohammed Mursi was passing statements and aggressive statements against the Indian state, or some of his ministers was passing statement against the Prime Minister and some of our islands, we did not respond like that. And same would be the situation which I believe in the case of Bangladesh. Give 6 months and Bangladesh would also realize that why India is important for them. So this is a continuous game. This is a continuous game of diplomacy and geopolitical affairs in which you need to continuously put efforts. So even in the China issue, if we see around 21 military rounds of talks, 17 rounds of diplomacy talks, and almost after 1589 days, finally a positive outcome has come. Obviously there are many external factors also related to China why they agreed, but the best part is that conversations were continuously going on. We had a system like WMCC, the National Security Advisor, Foreign Minister from our side, Foreign Minister Wang Yi, and so many people were continuously talking and collaborating, and that's why you saw the magic happen. The magic did not happen just like Harry Potter took, there's a wand, you say, some magic words and the magic happens. This was around 4.5 years of deft work which was done. So India-Russia bilateral relations, we need to put more numbers and point out a chart so that it moves in a positive direction. So this is a picture which I want to say. This shows India's foreign policy. So the Prime Minister, when it comes to hugging Zelensky or for that matter Putin, Zelensky or anyone else, that is his style. So I'm not talking about Prime Minister, I'm talking about India's independent policy to do it. So who the Prime Minister needs to hug and what it shows, we cannot be guided or we cannot be told that, for example, Canada is saying that you are accused and asking us to provide the proof of accused. So in anywhere in the law courts, this does not happen. So if you say that this person is accused, the other party has to, the defendant will not be getting, that the proof that it is me who has killed the person. So again, in this context also, what I want to say is that we are not dependent on any country's remarks that how we should behave. Same goes for Canada also and same goes for West. They will not tell us that, that how we need to behave. We have an independent foreign policy, we have a de-hyphenation policy, and we know how our strategic autonomy has to be maintained. Okay. Moving further, deft and heavy diplomacy by India. So you can see a lot of examples out there. So Modi's balancing act, July 2024, visited Moscow for talks with Putin. I've already covered in the starting part of the lecture. Then he goes to meet Zelensky through the Poland, and then visited the US for talks with Biden and has a personal dinner in Delaware. And October 2024, back in Russia for the BRICS summit from July to October 2024. So this is not only about Prime Minister but the backhand team. This shows how so much of work happens behind the screen before the diplomacy achieves its target. So India-Iran discussion also happened. The Prime Minister had discussion with President Masood Pezeshkian on Chabahar port, and also on the discussion on North-South transport corridor. Both are very important for us. If you talk about North-South transport corridor, from India it will go to Iran, then it will moving from Tajikistan, and it will go to towards Russia. Okay. Sorry, no, Iran to Azerbaijan, not Tajikistan. So Iran to Azerbaijan to Russia. Otherwise, if we see the other route, now this route is very long, and if the route is very long to come to India, the amount of money spent on transport would be high. First, the second problem which would come would be that the goods will take a huge amount of time to reach. This is the same problem which is happening in Red Sea, as Houthis started attacking lot of ships. So ships, rather than coming from Suez Canal and Red Sea, started coming from under the South Africa, from Cape of Good Hope. So the goods which used to, if they're coming from Europe, they used to take around 24 to 25 days to reach India. They started taking 34 to 35 days or 40 days. So amount of time increased. Second, the premium ships, which ships started charging more premium and more insurance money. So eventually, if a product was for say 100 rupees, the transportation cost got added onto it. The insurance cost, and the fees and the money which you need to pay to the ship because of all these threats. If a good was initially, it was for 100 and it was being sold for 150 in India, the goods prices went to 1000 or 2000 rupees. This is what happens when you need to take a larger route. Lot of complications come. But under the North-South transport corridor, again very important, the discussions happened on this. Second is Chabahar port, where India has invested a lot, and very important for India in terms of exports and imports, again from Iran point of view, and this can also be used as a counter port towards Gwadar. Gwadar is a port where Chinese have heavily invested and also forms part of the string of pearl strategy by the China. So PM also expressed about his concerns about the volatility which is being seen in Israel, Iran, and the West Asia West Asia and the Middle East, and possible ceasefire and diplomatic solutions to it. Now, BRICS summit in Kazan, context, significance. The most important context is that Russia leading it, and Russia getting the support of various other countries and leaders who have come to, not necessarily supporting Russia and Russia-Ukraine war, but BRICS summit is happening at a very volatile time in the geopolitical course which is going on in the world right now, in Russia-Ukraine war and the West Asia war, or the Israel-Hamas war. In this context, it's very important that so many leaders, the Iran leader is there, Venezuela leaders are there, and many leaders who have there have a kind of backing towards Russia, though India has been very independent thought process in it and talking about peaceful resolution. But many leaders have come who are not very great supporters of the West, and for example, Venezuelan president is there, Nicolas Maduro is there. Now, Nicolas Maduro is the president of Venezuela, and this election has not been accepted. Rather, Americans are saying that these elections have not been fair, but he is here. That also shows the mindset of the people towards the West, that for example, what Americans did in Bangladesh, they are right now recognizing the new storm and revolution in Bangladesh. But when it comes to Venezuela, it's a very different game. So if you get people who are as per or working as your puppets, you tend to like them. So this is one of the hypocrisy which is going on. So 16 BRICS summit is first to be held after the group expansion. So Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt and Ethiopia and UAE joined the bloc. Summit is chaired by Russia and is seen as a demonstration of Russian leadership despite the Ukraine conflict, and this is one of the very important geopolitical victory which Russia has been able to achieve. Ahead of the summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin met UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan to discuss significance of various regional issues. So I hope you have understood till here. And global participation, this is what I am talking about. Top world leaders have joined this. Chinese President Xi Jinping, Turkish President Erdogan, President of Azerbaijan, Armenian Prime Minister, Uzbek President is there, Tajik President, Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko, which has been very harsh on the Europeans and is a kind of right leader. Prime Minister of Vietnam, Pham Minh Chinh. This also shows how BRICS is moving towards global south and rather Southeast Asia, and also hitting or also trying to amalgamate ASEAN countries into the fold. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, I've already told you about him, and Bangladesh Foreign Secretary Mohammad Jashimuddin, after the new revolution and after the new the advisor under the Muhammad Yunus, the representation from Bangladesh is also happening in BRICS, and this tells about how this group has become important and why this 16 BRICS summit in Kazan is very important in the terms of global turmoil which is going on. So I've added a prelims questions for that. So 16 BRICS summit was held in Moscow. Wrong statement. It is happening in Kazan. New members like Saudi and Iran officially joined BRICS in January 2024. Correct. Summit witnessed a bilateral meeting between Indian Prime Minister. No, we were not meeting Ukraine. Rather, it's not even the part of it. So next mains question. India's participation in the 16th BRICS summit in Kazan highlights its commitment to peace and diplomacy amid geopolitical conflicts. Discuss India's stance on Ukraine conflict and significance of BRICS summit for India's foreign policy. Word limit and marks have been given here. So obviously you can take some data from the PDF. Rest you can read about Ukraine conflict and prepare your answer regarding this. So with this we covered the first news, and let's move to what's the second news for today. So finally statements from China has also come. So from Mr. Lin, China confirms pact to end standoff. So Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mr. Lin has also given statements, and he has rather commended the resolution which has come. But you know, we had a detailed discussion on Indo-China and Galwan yesterday. If you want to understand what was the Galwan issue, you can complete the Hindu Decode or the Daily Decode analysis of the Hindu newspaper yesterday. So I've covered it. So that part I won't be repeating. You can go through yesterday's session. So Ladakh standoff background. So there was a deadly confrontation which happened in Galwan Valley clash in 2020. From that particular time till today, 2024 October, we have come a long way in finding a peaceful resolution. By the time I'm talking to you, the meeting between Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi has almost got completed, and whatever has been the talks which has come out, we would be definitely covering that tomorrow in the Daily Decode. And yesterday I told you that as per my expectation, the meeting will happen, and that definitely happened. So you know, pat on the back for everyone who said that. So Galwan Valley clash in June 2020, where both sides were involved in deadly confrontation, marking the most serious military conflict which happened between India and China. Specifically, if I talk about in decades between the two countries. Since then, efforts to de-escalate the situation through diplomatic and military efforts has been going on. So yesterday I had told you in the session. So there are three things which we need to do. First, we need to do disengagement, then comes de-escalation, and then comes de-induction. So I also write that for you. Disengagement, de-escalation, and then de-induction or normal troop movement. So currently we are in this stage, then we will move towards de-escalation. De-escalation is related to the spectrum of war which I covered, from, for example, nuclear war to full conventional war, and then to non-conventional war, to skirmish, to fight, and pre-crisis level. This table I had covered yesterday in the yesterday news, and finally coming to de-induction, with the troops from both sides will start moving and the normal ties will happen. So there is still time to it, because currently we are in the disengagement phase. So finally diplomatic and military talks happen, and we have been able to reach kind of resolution, and the statement has been accepted. The statement related to the resolution has also released by the Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian, and so he again emphasized that both sides had been in close communication through diplomatic and military channels. And I had covered some minutes back that we might see that this just happened just before the BRICS summit. And obviously this was being done just before the BRICS summit, so that a kind of platform is made between, so that the Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping can talk to each other. A positive atmosphere of bonhomie can be created there. So in this way, this was being done. So it looks like pre-planned, but obviously a lot of effort went, which we covered in yesterday's news when I took you through that entire cycle where the foreign ministers were meeting, foreign secretaries were meeting, and a lot of talks were going on, multiple diplomatic and military talks. National Security Advisor also met the foreign minister, and eventually this was achieved. And the only two remaining points were Depsang, Plains and Demchok. So these were the only two confrontational areas, and that has also been resolved now. Okay, so Lin Jian commended the agreement, and the Chinese will also work very hard to implement the resolutions. China speaks highly of the resolution and looks forward to cooperating with India to ensure its successful implementation. Now, when it comes to China, so it's good that we are working with the China to resolve it, but when you work with China, you need to be very optimistic, cautiously very optimistic with China. So China is like a dragon with a forked tongue. Like, in 2018, 2019, 2018, we had the Wuhan informal summit. 2019, we had the Mamlapuram informal summit when Xi Jinping had come here. In 2018, the Prime Minister Modi had traveled to Wuhan. So in this context, and it was after 2019 statements were coming, new consensus is building, positive development was happening between India and China, but eventually in 2020 you got Galwan. So when it comes to China, you have to be very optimistically, cautiously optimistic. You have to go with your wide eyes open. You need to talk about peace with China as much as possible and find resolution on the border areas, but at the same time your security forces need to be properly prepared, because you cannot trust China. You go back to 62 war and you see what they have done in the past. So again, it's good that things are happening, but at the same time we need to be optimistic, cautiously optimistic about this. So, like when we talk about India, Russia, see, optics, chemistry, everything is being checked. But the relationship with China, the chemistry is very different in that. India has tried multiple times. Let's see how eventually things evolve between India and China. Now, covering one more part from this, that why China definitely agreed. So there are many reasons apart from, which I even spoke yesterday in the session, that China agreeing for this, obviously what is happening in South China Sea, and as and when the Russia-Ukraine war gets over or Israel-Hamas war gets over, if you read the National Security Strategy 2024 of major European countries and America, their major threat is China. So once Russia-Ukraine war is over, once Israel-Iran war is over, where do you think the entire Europe and the Americans will target or see or challenge? That would be China. So it is China which is actually questioning the hegemony of Americans, and China would be needing important defense partners, and at this point of time they are already in a kind of battle or a war, making artificial islands in South China Sea, having skirmishes with Philippines. Squad we have come there, which includes Philippines, Americans, Australians and Japanese. So in this context, they need to resolve some border areas with India. They might need an important partner to resolve things. So rest Depsang and Demchok, again each patrol will consist of at least 14 to 15 troops, and both the sides will intimate about their programs in advance. Bilateral meeting on the sidelines of BRICS summit. I've already told you this meeting is happening. Yesterday I was talking about, so finally this is happening. Foreign Secretary made the announcement, and the most important, this is the first structured meeting since Eastern Ladakh. So they had met during the last BRICS summit. They had also met in the Bali. But all those meetings were more of an informal discussion, though the consensus was coming that we want to resolve this issue. But finally, the meeting is happening today between India and China. First structured meeting. Now, mains-based question. The resolution of the Ladakh standoff marks a significant milestone in India-China relation, but challenges remain. Discuss the importance of diplomacy and military dialogue in resolving border dispute, ensuring peace along the line of actual control between India and China. Now, if you see this question, a lot of internal security part is coming, and obviously you need to be aware about the IR part also, then only you can answer. So certain part you can take from the news, and certain you will have to dig a bit deeper to answer this mains question. Next is focus is now on restoring trust, says the Army Chief General Dwivedi. So General Dwivedi is absolutely correct that it's good that we are trying to find the resolution is happening, but you cannot straight away go and start trusting China like this. We need to restore that trust. We need to do, so disengagement is happening, then de-escalation will happen, then de-induction or the normalization or the normal management of the line of actual control will take place. Currently we are in the disengagement phase. Disengagement phase, then we'll move to de-escalation, and finally the normal management of the line of actual control troops would be moving on the either side, or which we also known as in military terms or military parlance, it is also known as de-induction of troops. So General Dwivedi cautioned that the process involved phases and trust building is a gradual effort. And obviously what happened after 2018 Wuhan informal summit, 2019 Mamlapuram summit, when things were working between India and China from its forked tongue, the dragon from its forked tongue gave us the 2020 Galwan Valley clash. So obviously the trust will take time to develop, and that is what I'm saying, that we need to focus. We need to make sure that between the both countries, specifically from India's term, that we are cautiously optimistic about this and go with our wide eyes open. Peace should be there, but at the same time our security forces should be ready to prepare for a war if it happens, because we continuously talk about 2.5 front warfare, one from Pakistan, China, and 0.5 from inside. Next is IMF retains India's growth projection at 7% for financial year 2025. So completing the geopolitical and the security news, now moving towards the economy news. So wonderful news has come. So even after what is the economic turmoil which is going on, the war is going on, India's projection by IMF is at 7% for financial year 2025, which means from 2024 to 2025, and for 2025 to 2026 it's around 6.5%. The world economic growth they are talking about is around 3.2%, and so IMF comes out with a report which is called World Economic Outlook. This question has previously come in the UPSC, where they had given what is the report of World Bank called, what is the report of IMF called, and there was match the following or find the odd one out. So this has already come in prelims. I think that question was somewhere in 2014, 15, 16, somewhere in the prelims. So World Economic Outlook, this report comes by IMF. It has given us 7% for the fiscal year ending financial year 2025. So when I say financial year 2025, it means 2024 to 2025. Okay, the growth rate for India in the next fiscal year, I've already covered 6.5%. World around global output is expected to grow at 3.2% in 2024 and 2025. And IMF projection remain unchanged from its June 2024 update, despite the war going on, the Israel war going on, Russia-Ukraine war going on. So this seems to be good. In terms, the overall inflation has also come down. The inflation was around 9.2%. It is now coming around somewhere around 3%. Inflation is coming down. Then one more thing, let me go to that. World inflation is coming from 9.4 to 3.5%. Global economy has avoided a recession because of the disinflationary measures and major monetary tightening policy. So again, a very positive thing. US is projected to grow at 2.8% in 2024 and 2.2% in 2025 as per the July WEO report. So there is upward revision. So this is again good, because when generally seeing when US economy is doing well, since so many economies are integrated with them, it shows a positive trend. Okay. Now one more thing, the question which is there, it has also been seen that our growth went, once the COVID was over, our growth went to 8.2% in 2023. So from 2022 to 2023, you need to realize that was the pent up demand. During the pandemic, the major everybody was at home, things were not moving, and suddenly when the economy was open, so that pent up demand went very high. Now the economies are stabilizing. So what you are getting is a growth of 7%. This is a stabilized rate which you are getting. So exhaustion of pent up demand accumulated during the pandemic, now it is getting stabilized. Temporary factors supporting the higher growth rates during the pandemic recovery phase have dissipated. That is why you are getting this growth rate of around 7%. It has come down from 8.2%. Now, risk to global economy. So, IMF chief economist Gorenchas or chief economist Pierre Oliver Gorenchas says there are three major problems or three major risks. First is geopolitical tension. So, I think we have been covering this for a couple of days now. That is Russia-Ukraine crisis and the Israel crisis, Israel-Hamas. If the crisis continue, obviously any crisis is not very good for economy. I just gave you that example of a ship. It takes 24 days or 25 days. But because of the crisis, if it is taking 35, 40 days, obviously more money needs to be spent. So not good for the global economy. Second, the problem is protectionist policies when you try to save your domestic manufacturer or domestic industry by putting more excise and other duties to save your domestic manufacturer or domestic industries, and tight monetary policy being applied to control inflation and other factors. This is the second problem. And third is concern over sovereign debt stress and weak economic activity in China. Now, China is the biggest manufacturing giant in the world. Now, China, as per this report, will not be able to achieve their 5.1 to 5.2% of target. They would not be able to achieve. Now they have given a target of around 4.5 to 4.7% as per the amended IMF targets. And so if Chinese economy is not doing well because of so there used to be a real estate boom in China, which was very good, but that real estate boom has come down. And all these companies which had taken humongous amount of loans, these real estate companies, they are not able to pay back these loans to the banks they have taken. So again, putting a sovereign debt crisis in China. The domestic demand in China has also come down. Now China is using a lot of measures so that this demand can be increased in China, but that is not happening. And when China demand is not happening, economy is not growing, maybe this might be one of the reasons that there is a change in their stance towards India, because they might need in India for their economic growth. Or rather, China is the biggest trading partner. China is the biggest trading partner with India. Then it comes the Americans. So these are the three problems which are risk to the global economic outlook. So IMF have come with triple policy pivot, three methods they are suggesting to find the solution to this problem. First is neutral monetary policy stance, which many countries are moving, neither very tight monetary policy, neither very loose monetary policy. Second is about fiscal strengthening and fiscal stability. And third important measure is structural reforms. Includes effort to boost growth and productivity, address the issue of aging population and more opportunities to young population, climate resilient climate transition, and increase resilience in the society, in the countries to overcome these problems. So neutral monetary policy, building fiscal buffers and structural reforms are needed if we want to come out of this 3.2 global growth rate. That is the way we can come out. So the IMF has told that these are the three problems and these are the three solutions, and they are calling this as triple policy pivot. So this can come in the exam. What is triple policy pivot to address the 3.2% global growth rate, which is termed as relatively mediocre as per the IMF. Now as I'm talking about IMF, a summit, a BRICS summit is happening. Similarly, a summit is happening in Washington DC, where IMF and World Bank are there. India is being represented by Nirmala Sitharaman. So this meeting is also happening, seeing what is happening, the economic trends, what can be expected specifically in this economic turbulent or turmoil times which is the world is seeing. So 2024 annual meetings of IMF, World Bank is happening at DC, that is Washington DC. India is being represented by our Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, and the discussion are taking in the context of upcoming US elections and various regional conflicts, and what can be the economic projections in the coming future. Now moving towards the next prelims question. So IMF have projected India's growth rate at 7% for 2025 to 2026. Wrong statement. It is for 2024 to 2025. Global inflation is expected to remain above 5% until the end of 2025. No, it is coming down. So we've already discussed that. The IMF recommends triple policy pivot to address the projected global growth rate of 3.2. Third statement is correct. So again, third statement is correct, rest two are wrong. Mains question, IMF growth projection highlights significant challenges for global economic stability, particularly in emerging economies like India, discuss the factors affecting India's growth outlook and evaluate the policy recommendation made by the IMF to address the global economic risk. So again, a lot of information is given and rest you can add as per your insights. So next news, Navy has set up 2 task forces to develop technologies. Now we will cover this news. So apart from TDEC was already there. So Technology Development Accelerator Cell was already there, which is working with MSMEs and startups for the technology needs of the Indian Navy. Now 2 more task forces has come, which would be working for faster turnaround time, and this would be headed by Rear Admiral. This announcement comes from Vice Admiral Krishna Swamy, who is also the Vice Chief of the Indian Navy. And these new task forces would be dealing with the to acquire advanced technologies for the Indian Navy. So their focus areas would be this: fuses and radars, quantum computing, interface devices, electronic and weapons technologies, and indigenization of ammunition. Everywhere you go today, specifically security forces, equipments, continuous one thing which we talk about is Atmanirbharta and indigenization, that we need to create our own defense products. We need to create our own arms, ammunition, frigates, warships, submarines. Because till the time you don't start making your own weapons, you can never be a superpower. To become a superpower, it is very important that you make your own weapons. So whatever kind of weapons Chinese make, good quality, bad quality, not super good quality, the good part is that they are trying to create their own weapons. So I'm not saying that we should follow them and make bad quality or inferior quality weapons or products, but we also need to focus on creating this indigenization. The government focusing on this is a good step, because if you want to become a superpower and your weapons are coming from a different country, the problem is that if tomorrow a war happens and that particular weapon you need arms, ammunition or ammunition related to it, or some major part related to it. For example, you need to upgrade your Rafale, but in that war, the war when you are happening, you say you are having a war with China, the France is not ready to supply you those parts because they feel that rather China is paying them, or they want to maintain their relationship with China, and if those parts do not come to us, maybe we lose the war against China. So that is why it is very important that a superpower country would be that which makes its own weapons. Obviously, some niche technologies or some other technologies can be imported. We have started our phase of developing our weapons. This is a good thing that we are talking about these 2 task forces. Swavlamban is happening, Hackathon is also being done by Indian Navy, but the process of indigenization is the one which actually makes you superpower in terms of your military strength and its projections. Okay, so TDAC will continue engaging with startups and MSME, rest these 2 would be for faster turnaround time. So Swavlamban 2024 seminar, again read the theme, strength and power through innovation and indigenization. So if you study the military complex of Americans, so there are 3 important parts in military complexes of Americans. So one is top institutions like Harvard and other big universities, so which do a lot of research. Second would be definitely government, and third would be companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing. So these 3 come together. So for example, the government says that the US Air Force says that we need this kind of weapon or this kind of fighter aircraft. So Lockheed Martin says this is currently we have, and then the people from research academia says that this is the research we are doing, and 3 of them work together and then they create a weapon. So similar kind of concept needs to be applied here in India with standard deadlines so that the product can be achieved. And again, indigenization. So event aims to showcase India's innovation efforts of the armed forces and how we are moving in this direction. Then a hackathon is also happening, the 5th the hackathon, where 5 important challenges are there. So one is your speech separation, drone swarm coordination, this is again very important. Then the 5th one is also very important, maritime situational awareness in terms of China, what they might be doing in in the ocean, navigation and real-time tracking of flying objects, again from the drone point of view, how they are becoming a threat, application of load balancer on load stock. So again, very, very important. So these are the 5 hackathon challenges. So prelims question, Navy Technology Development, TDAC was recently set up, again wrong statement, it was already set up, the new 2 task forces. Swavlamban seminar focuses on indigenization of Navy technology needs, correct. The hackathon challenges announced under Swavlamban include maritime situational awareness and drone swarm coordination. The second and third statements are correct. Now moving towards the next news, India's 4th nuclear submarine launched with advanced arms, which is also known as S4. So moving with this, we already have 2 nuclear submarines, third one is in testing. So and this would be the 4th one. So a wonderful news coming. So launch of India's 4th nuclear powered submarine, which is also known as SSBN. So SSBN is a ballistic nuclear submarine, ballistic missile submarine. SSBN stands for Ship Submersible Ballistic Nuclear. So both the full forms are fine. So this would be known as S4. This would be much more advanced than rather S4 asterisk. S4 is your Ardhiman. So S4 asterisk, the name would be given later on to it. So this would be much more advanced than Arihant and Arighat with better engine capability and more indigenization of technology and other parts. So India's 4th SSBN, referred to as S4 asterisk, was launched into water at the shipbuilding center in Visakhapatnam. Submarine represents the significant advance, being bigger and more capable than INS Arihant. So INS, in November 2018 we had completed our nuclear triad, and that was completed when the patrolling deterrence was done by INS Arihant, which is also known as S2. India's first SSBN, which was developed under the Advanced Technology ATV Vessel Program. So ATV Vessel Program in India started in 1980s. Okay. So this is what is happening on S4 asterisk. So what does this S4 asterisk incorporates? Most importantly, the previous news was talking about indigenization. It is having indigenization content, showcasing India's technological progress and industrial involvement. Now, one thing which I want to talk about, why there is so much focus on nuclear submarines. Why nuclear submarines are better than diesel submarines? See, if you see diesel submarine, so diesel submarine cannot stay in the water for a very long period of time. It has to come out of the water. The process, it's called snorkeling or snorkel. So they come out of the water. So they need air, they need oxygen to recharge their batteries. Once they come out of the water, the submarine's position is revealed. And once the position is revealed, then the entire the game of deception which you were doing is that game goes away. So that is why submarine, till the time it is under the water and till the time you cannot detect it, that is the biggest advantage a submarine has. Once you are able to detect it, you can fire a torpedo or you can fire a missile and destroy it. So that is the problem in diesel submarine, that after a week or 10 days or 15 days, it has to come out. But compared to a nuclear submarine, so now nuclear submarine has a small nuclear reactor which uses water. It heats up the water, and through that energy the nuclear submarine moves, and the speed of nuclear submarine is also very, very high. And it has ballistic missiles also. Since it has a ballistic missile, it can launch, and the range of ballistic missile is very high, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 kilometers. So it also gives you a large amount of deterrence capability and large amount of firing power compared to a diesel submarine. So if you increase the speed of a diesel submarine, the problem is that the fuel consumption would be higher, and the submarine would have to come, for the recharging the batteries, it will have to come up again. And heavy weapons cannot be deployed in diesel submarine. Though there is a new system called AIP, Air Independent Propulsion System, which has come, which is now being deployed in diesel submarines, and because of that system, the submarine does not need to come so often outside the water and it has fuel cell technology. A lot of tech is there in the AIP system, but again, compared to SSBN, compared to nuclear missile, diesel submarines are not so great. But the problem is that nuclear submarines require a humongous amount of money, huge amount of money needed to spend, and research has to be done. So the cost of diesel submarine is less, nuclear submarine is very costly, but it gives you a lot of deterrence, and most importantly, since it stays in the water for a very long period of time. So Chinese might be thinking that submarine is near Arabian Sea, but probably submarine is just somewhere on the eastern coast of China, and they might not be knowing it, because the blip on the radar or the sonar is very, very less. Rather, it is very difficult to suspect, or rather to find, because it is continuously moving under the water and does not need to come so often outside the water. So that is one of the capabilities compared to the nuclear submarine and the diesel submarine, which I wanted to talk about. Now, existing SSBN fleet and capabilities. So currently we have these submarine, INS Arihant with 6,000 ton displacement, 83 megawatt pressurized light water reactor, which was commissioned in August 2016, but the nuclear triad got completed in November 2018. INS Arigat commissioned in August 2024 this year, sharing the same reactor and dimensions as INS Arihant, but with better indigenization technologies, better technology upgrades. Then you've got third SSBN, INS Ardiman, where the testing sea trials are going on for this submarine, which is also known as S4. So this is called S4, and the new one which is coming is called S4 asterisk. What would be the new name? Only the government will tell in the coming days. So S4 and S4 asterisk have an improved reactor design compared to the predecessors, offering enhanced capabilities, better technologies, and apart from that, it will also be having SLBMs. It will be having K4 SLBM. SLBM is submarine launched ballistic missile, and the K4 has a range of 3,500 kilometers, and which will give the capability which is also known as standoff capability. And this is a wonderful capability a nuclear submarine has. So what is a standoff capability? It refers to the ability to engage a target from a huge distance, from a distance outside of the range of enemy defenses. So for example, if China has their defenses range is somewhere here, okay, and our submarine is somewhere here, so we can launch our ballistic missile and target China, but it cannot target our nuclear submarine. So this is what I'm talking about, that the strategic advantage a nuclear submarine has. Okay, this is called standoff capability. So K4 SLBM will be the primary weapon, and testing are also going on that this capability of this ballistic missile should be increased to 5,000 kilometers, and once that is done, then we can actually target most of the corners of China or any other country in the current context. So I'm talking China because China is the biggest threat. This also tells you the importance of the group called AUKUS. Why AUKUS is important? Because AUKUS, Australia, US and UK, because Australia needs nuclear submarines so that they can target or they can counteract against the threat of Chinese nuclear submarines, and that is why nuclear submarines are so important, and that is the reason this group has been made, Australia, UK and US. So standoff capability you've understood. So again, the nuclear triad in India achieved its nuclear triad in November 2018 when INS Arihant completed first deterrence patrol. Then India's nuclear policy is based on credible minimum deterrence and no first use policy. But if you use nuclear weapons against us, then the result would be this massive retaliation if struck first, and the other country would be doomed if it uses nuclear weapons against India. Apart from that, ATV program started in 1980s, and with the submarine launched in 2009, and eventually the nuclear triad was achieved in November 2018. Nuclear test conducted under Pokhran 2 in 1998 laid the foundation of nuclear doctrine, which came in 2003. So again, apart from this, a lot of nuclear submarine use is there. An SSN project is going on recently. Around 40,000 crore would be spent to get nuclear attack submarines to indigenous SSN. So these are fast moving maneuver nuclear submarine for faster attacks. They are also called as hunter killers. So please remember, 2 indigenous SSN nuclear attack submarines, also known as hunter killers. This is apart from the 4 nuclear submarines SSBN which we have. So we have got Arihant, we have got Arigat, we have got Ardaman, then S4 asterisk is being made. Apart from these 4, these 2 are there. So they are called SSN. These are smaller submarines for faster maneuverability and attack, and that is why they are known as hunter killers. Okay, so this requirement is specifically to the Indo-Pacific region, and we very well know which is the country India would be targeting: China, if the need arises. So we are doing a deal and we are talking to Russia, we are talking to China, but that does not mean that we are not cautiously optimistic. We are. So so this is the difference. SSN are optimized for speed and maneuverability and faster attacks. SSBN are larger, designed to carry and launch SLBMs for a vertical launch system. So with this we complete this news also. Moving to the next one, the prelims question. K4 SLBM has a range of 3,500 km, currently deployed on INS Arigat. No, it is not on INS Arigat, it would be on S4 asterisk. India completed its nuclear triad with commissioning of INS Ardaman. No, INS Arihant. India's nuclear doctrine includes no first use commitment. Third statement is correct, and that is the answer. Next news is India-Singapore to explore joint development production of equipment of armed forces. So joint development production, this would be increasing development and co-production of defense equipment, also extension of joint military training army for the next 5 years. So this meeting is happening in Delhi between our defense minister Rajnath Singh and from the counterpart from Singapore, Singapore's defense minister Dr. Neg Eng. And if you are following the news, the Prime Minister Modi was recently in Singapore, where a relationship has moved from bilateral to comprehensive strategic partnership level. So again, the relationship between Singapore and India is developing. We are also doing a lot of deals specifically related to semiconductor and chips. So economic contribution towards both sides, specifically from Singapore towards Indian side, is increasing like anything. So areas of collaboration. So 3 major areas of collaboration between India and Singapore in this context of the meeting are artificial intelligence, automation, cyber security. Singapore has been very good in this, so a lot of things would come from that side. Both ministers acknowledge the strong bilateral defense ties between the country, and specifically if I talk about Singapore, Singapore has been very helpful for India, so that India's specifically rather a very important partner of India's Act East policy. So India's Act East policy from 2014 to 2024, we have almost completed a decade of Act East policy, and one important country for India in this Act East policy has been Singapore, specifically in terms of amalgamation and addition of India, more or better or a significant addition of India in the ASEAN and ASEAN Defense Plus. Similarly, Singapore also understands the contribution and importance of India as a country, specifically in the peace and stability of the region in this South China Sea and in this particular area. So this we have done, rest I have covered in the PPT, you can go through that. And comprehensive strategic partnership I've also covered, and the partnership aims to strengthen their across multiple domains: defense, trade and connectivity. So a mains question has been given. India-Singapore Defence Ministerial Dialogue reflects growing strategic cooperation in defence and security between the two nations. Discuss the significance of defence cooperation in the context of India's Act East policy and implication for regional security in Southeast Asia. So this is a good question. This question can also be for 250 words and 15 marks. It's a wonderful question covering a lot of things about what is happening in Southeast Asia, the relationship which is evolving between India and Singapore also. Next is air quality in Delhi remains very poor. The government initiates action. This is related to GRAP. GRAP is Graded Response Action Plan. So this is an emergency response system which is put in Delhi, specifically when the air quality index or air quality comes down. Currently the air quality index or the air quality in Delhi is around 327. So there are 4 parameters, 4 stages of GRAP 2, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 and stage 4. We are currently in stage 2 as and when the pollution will increase, will go to different stages, and in every stage more stringent guidelines related to infrastructural projects or cars, against car, how many cars, odd, even, and different rules, or diesel cars, different rules are applied. Generally, during this time, old diesel cars are stopped, infrastructure project is stopped, and pollution at this point of time increases in Delhi, specifically because of the stubble burning issue which happens in Punjab and Haryana, and a lot of pollution also happens during the time of Diwali also. So GRAP is a framework designed to combat air pollution in Delhi NCR region, emergency response mechanism when the air quality index reaches poor levels. The Commission for Air Quality Management CAQM in NCR and adjoining areas oversee the implementation of GRAP. So this organization is important, CAQM, Commission for Air Quality Management, and this organization also collaborates with the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So these are certain factors from the prelims point of view. And these are the different 4 stages. Stage 1 poor, very poor, severe and severe plus. So poor is 201 to 300, next stage is 301 to 400, then you have 401 to 450, then you have 450 plus, more than 450. So moving towards the editorial, again the editorialist, West versus the rest. So in this editorial, if we say this editorial exposes the hypocrisy of the West, the West, specifically the Americans and Canadians, and it exposes the hypocrisy in this way. First is allegations against India. So they are putting allegations against India and asking India to prove those allegations. It is putting a case against the accused and asking that you prove it. So this is what the Western countries are doing. And they have been going through, they have this, the white man's mentality that whatever we speak is gospel's truth. That is not the gospel truth. The world is changed. This is not 1947. Rather, this should not be happening. Even in 1947, we are in 2024. So your words cannot be gospel's truth, right? So times have changed, countries have changed, and that is why the importance of this groups like BRICS and other have evolved over a period of time. So Western double standard, West history of covert activities in various countries including allies highlights political motivation. Now West has done huge amount of these covert operations in other countries. Israel did, a covert operation in killing so many Hezbollah. So I'm not saying what Israel did was wrong, but what Israel did was automatically agreed by all Western countries that this is correct. So it might be correct, it might not be correct. That should be decided by Israel's autonomy and strategic decisions. But what Western countries think, whatever they say, they feel they are the correct ones to say. So if you go back in the history of CIA has done number of assassinations in different countries. I am not supporting, or neither I am saying that India has done this killing of Nijar, but they are not the ones who will tell us what we should do and what we shouldn't, and that too without any proofs. So this exposes the Western double standards. When they do, it is correct, but when we do, or we rather talk about it, they question us. So we have been continuously asking that West tolerance of anti-Indian threats and Khalistani related violence which is happening in Canada, America. They are using Canadian and American soil, and when I talk about Canada, in Canada possessions are being taken in which there are posters, or rather a caricature of the late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and the 2 bodyguards which shot her. That is being celebrated. Our flags are being torn and burned, but the Canada does not do anything about it. Rather, it says it's free speech. But at the same time, when Indian media criticizes Americans and Canadians, they don't like that. So this is double standard. So if it happens in your country, it is free speech. But if our media is doing it, you don't like it. So again, double standards. Free speech debate. So there has to be, in India we have fundamental rights with fundamental duties. Rights come with duties. But what they do, they are talking about free speech, but this is not free speech. This is hate speech. The Americans and Canadians need to understand this very clearly, specifically when they are thinking that they are the leaders of democracy in the world. Role of Indian diaspora. Indian diaspora is definitely increasing in this country, and that is why a resolution needs to be found. Otherwise, Indian diaspora might be in a grave danger. Like Right now it is being told that some diaspora of Indians in Canada might have been, a threat, continuous threats are being put, like Sikh for Justice, Gurpan Singh Pannu has given a straight away threat, don't take Indian Airlines, and the Canadians are doing nothing about it, and he's giving a straight threat to Indians, don't fly Air India. Like, how can you give this threat and no action is being taken? Rather, he's being saved by the Americans. So growing Indian diaspora in Western countries contribute societal vibrancy, but these potential conflicts needs to be resolved so that India-West partnership continues. Rather, for this particular editorial, I've given all details in much more. You can go through that. This is the main questions. The allegation against India regarding covert operation in Western countries highlight the challenges in balancing national security and democratic values like free speech. Discuss the implication of these allegations on India-West relation and role of Indian diaspora in shaping of these dynamics. So you can take some information from the slides, rest you can add it. So in tidbits, first of all, Ukraine population has declined by 8 million since the Russian war. Second is Tenkana. This is a new species of spider which has been found. So they are also known as jumping spiders. It also introduced a new species, Tenkana jayamangali, from Karnataka. Next tidbit news is from the PETA. PETA stands for People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, and they are going to the High Court of Karnataka seeking direction to the government not to permit Kambala. So Kambala has been a lot in the news, so that is why I've added this slush track buffalo race in Bengaluru and or any other parts of state, as the tradition basically belongs to restricted to the Udupi and Dakshina Kannada districts. The extra mile, you can read about this, why the big tech companies such Google scouting for nuclear power in the extra miles. And finally, the quote for today, inspiration comes from within yourself. One has to be positive. When you are positive, good things happen. So in this context, if you are regularly dependent upon some movie for motivation or some person, that motivation will come and go. But if the inspiration is from within you, you will definitely achieve and do the magic. So it's the one you who will decide where you go. So with this, the analysis for today is over. I hope you liked it. How you're finding this lectures, this series, the Daily Decode, please mention in the comment section. The PDF of this, the link is available in the description. Please share with the other people who want to have a detailed and want to understand in detail the Hindu analysis. Thank you very much, and we'll meet tomorrow.